Welcome back to the David Sparks Show. I am David Sparks, and let's get into topic number one. Rachel Maddow. Check this clip out. I can understand some of where she's coming from, but I'll comment on this after this clip.
On the day of the worst school shooting in U.S. history, this past December in Newtown, Connecticut, on the day that it happened, the Associated Press, among other news organizations, asked for the recordings of the 911 calls that were made that day during that crisis from the Sandy Hook Elementary School. And now, asking for the 911 calls, that is a standard news gathering request. It is routinely done in basically all emergency situations that get covered by the press. Even though it is standard practice, in the case of Newtown, Connecticut, the local police that day made the decision to deny that request by the media. They did not allow the tapes to be released. Well, yesterday, a state panel in Connecticut overturned that decision and ordered the release of the 911 calls. I am sort of a free speech purist. Obviously, I work in the news, so I'm inclined that direction anyway. But in general, even personally, I am a free speech purist. I believe very strongly that the answer to bad speech or troubling speech is more speech, that it is wrong and usually counterproductive to try to suppress information and access to information. But honestly, it breaks my heart to think about the audio of those calls being released. And this is not a done deal yet. The AP does not have the tapes yet. They may very well never have them. The state is in the process of appealing the ruling, and they show every sign of fighting this vociferously because they do not want these tapes out. But if the audio of those 911 calls is released, if the sound is released of people being terrorized while they are in the act of being terrorized in the course of a mass murder of children, I have to say, I hope the media collectively will have the, well, what do you call it? The good judgment, the reasonableness, and the stout enough hearts that no one sees fit to broadcast those tapes if they are ever made available. There is no legitimate purpose for those calls to be heard by the public.
911 calls are regular requests from media organizations around the country and are considered to be public record. In the case of Newtown, this is no different. I think it's a much larger risk that you run by not releasing the calls than you do releasing them, and this is why. There are smaller tragedies that happen all over the United States every day, of which the contents of the 911 calls are released to the media because they fall under the Sunshine Act, which provides for being able to request open documents, which these documents, they're sound files, but they're documents nonetheless, are considered. If we give preferential treatment in the case of Newtown for not releasing 911 calls due to the nature of the calls, anyone can understand why someone would not want to release these calls because of the further emotional damage that could certainly emanate from these. However, when it comes to the law and what's open and what's not, there cannot be any wiggle room. Either everything is open or they're not, because as I said earlier, many different situations, many tragic situations, of which just may not have been as large a scale of tragedy as what happened in Newtown, but nonetheless happen and are exposed to media requests, whether the people calling the 911 channels want them to be exposed or not. While the Newtown tragedy is certainly a horrific tragedy, we must not let crazed gunmen allow our democracy and the laws that have been written for us to live by be dictated by crazed lunatic gunmen and massive tragedies and emotions. If there's a precedent set in the Newtown case, then police departments all over the country could decide to withhold 911 calls or other pertinent public information upon their discretion. And we fought, died, bled, litigated, for decades and centuries, actually, to have a free and open government, something people are still fighting for to this very day. So while the victims of the Newtown tragedy can certainly be empathized with, and the police department in Newtown for not wanting these records to go out, a much more important issue is at stake, and that is transparency in government. Is it come a la carte, or is it by the book? Joe Friday says, just the facts, let's go by the book. I would happen to agree with him. I really appreciate you watching. Take care.
Side of Bettyville, on the other side of hell.